So we're going to cover the basic of setting up a reaction in a water bath, whether it be a hot water bath or a cold water bath. Usually it's a hot water bath, but there's a few things that you need to understand that need to be observed when you do this. First of all, almost every time you set up a reaction on a hot plate, you're going to have a stir bar in there, and you can see hopefully that I have my spin vane in there and it's spinning. I can turn it up or turn it down. What you need to understand about the spin vane and this setup is that there's a magnet in the stir plate, and the spin vane itself is a magnet. And just like any magnets, they have to be close enough together to feel each other. If they're too far away, what's going to happen, and as I raise this up, what you're going to see is eventually it's going to stop spinning because no longer can the magnets feel each other. So anytime you set up a reaction with a spin vane, the reaction vial needs to be about no more than an inch away from the top of the stir plate. And most people like to just set it straight down on top, but when you're doing this in a water bath, that's usually not a good idea, because what you want and why we're using a water bath is so that we can have even heating and consistent heating. And if you set your reaction vial on the bottom of a beaker, even though it's got water in it, it's going to be sitting right on the heat, and so the bottom of the reaction vial is getting hotter than everything else. And so you want a space there, but you need a space that's no more than an inch. So that's the first thing to understand about setting it up. The second thing to understand about setting it up is you have to have enough water, but not so much water that the water line goes above the cap. So you need to have enough water in there to cover the entire reaction in the contents of your reaction vial, but you don't want the water level to get to the screw top. And the reason for that is because this may not be watertight, and if it's not watertight, the last thing you want is for water to get into your reaction. And so you want to keep the water level sufficient so that it covers all of the reactants in the vial, but not so high that it gets up to that the cap or the juncture between if you're using an air condenser or water jacketed condenser. All right, so that's the second thing. The last thing is that most of the time you're going to want to measure the temperature of the water bath. And a lot of people just want to put their thermometer down in the water bath, and it seems safe enough, but I've seen historically what happens is, because you're working in the hood, it's very easy to bump into this and for it to fall out and for it to break. And these are not particularly cheap, so we'd rather not break them if we can avoid it. And so the best thing to do is to use the back of the clamp. So there's a space right behind where you've clamped the condenser in, and that's going to stay there. It's not going to be knocked over. It's going to be very secure, and you'll be able to measure the temperature quite well. So that's the basics of setting up a reaction in a water bath, hot or cold.